Seneca to Paulinus on the transience of life. Chapter 17. Even their pleasures are filled with anxiety and various fears. The moment of supreme delight is poisoned by the anxious thought, how long will it last? This was the feeling that made the kings mourn for their power. They were no longer happy with the happiness granted by fate, but dreaded the coming end. One Persian king of exorbitant pride, C6, ordered to build his army in the steppe, but unable to count the soldiers, measured only its length and cried that, say, not even 100 years will pass, as out of 1,000 of these selected young men will not remain a single one. But he himself, in tears, led them to meet their doom. He himself, so anxious about what would happen to them in 100 years, destroyed them all within a few months, some at sea, some on land, some in battle, some in flight. Yea, are not all their joys mingled with fear and anxiety? For they are not produced by base causes, but by trifling vanity, which then poisons them. But if even in those moments when the rapture, they say, raises them to unearthly heights, they cannot experience pure joy without an admixture of fear, think what must be the times which they themselves call miserable? The greater the good, the greater the anxiety connected with it, the fuller the happiness, the less you can rely on it. To hold on to what you have gotten, you need another fortune. If what you sacrificed for has been fulfilled, you must sooner sacrifice for that fulfillment, and so on without end. All that is gained by luck is fragile. The higher one rises, the easier it is to fall. But who will be pleased with that which at any moment may fall? This means that not only the shortest, but also the most miserable life is lived by people who, with great labor, obtain goods for themselves, the possession of which will require from them even greater labor. Every effort is made to achieve what is desired, and then how much anxiety to hold on to what has been achieved. Meanwhile, the time that is irretrievably passing is not taken into account. Old things are not yet finished, but new things have already appeared. One ambitious plan gives rise to others. Hope leads to hope. But we do not try to put an end to our misfortunes. We only fill them with new content. We have spent a lot of time seeking honorable positions for ourselves. Now we spend even more time seeking them for others. No sooner do we get rid of the drudgery of being a candidate than we start collecting votes for someone else. No sooner do we breathe a sigh of relief, having resigned the duties of the prosecutor, than the judicial powers are already here. And whoever ceases to be a judge is already appointed an investigator or a court president. When a man has grown old, managing other people's estates for a salary, he is now concerned about his own wealth, accumulated over the years, and he has no rest. Marius has not had time to take off his soldier's boots, and already the consulate is demanding all his energies and attention. Quinctius is in a hurry to resign his dictatorship. He is already called to return to the plow. But Scipio, a youth not yet grown up to such matters, he will go after the Punians. Victor of Hannibal, victor of Antiochus, the ornament of his own consulship, the surety of the brotherhood, he would have been elevated to the throne next to Jupiter, had he not himself moderated the popular enthusiasms. But civil strife will not give rest to the Savior, and instead of honors not inferior to those of the divine, and scornfully rejected by the youth, the old man will have but one joy, to be proud of his obstinate exile. There will never be any lack of cause for anxiety, whether it be fear of present happiness or of impending misfortune. One care will push life on to another. The ever-desired leisure will never come. Chapter 15. So at last, dear Paulinus, get out of the human whirlpool and return to a quiet harbor. You have been on the waves longer than your age would warrant. Remember how many times you have been caught at sea by bad weather, how many domestic thunderstorms you have had to endure, how many public storms you have caused yourself. Believe me, in your many labors, cares, and anxieties, you have quite proved your virtue. It is time to see what it is worth at leisure. Let the greater and better part of your life be given to the state, but at least take some of the time that belongs to you. I do not urge you to lazy and inactive rest, nor do I want you to sink into slumber or drown your living gifts in pleasures that please the crowd. That is not what I call rest. No, there are great things in store for you, greater than any that you have hitherto undertaken with your usual vigor and zeal, and you will undertake them far from the anxieties and vanities of men. You examine the money accounts of the whole globe as disinterestedly as if they were other people's, as carefully as if they were your own, as if they were a sacred duty, as if they were public. You have earned your love by holding a position in which it is rare for anyone to escape hatred. And yet, believe me, it is better to take stock of your own life than of the harvest of the state's bread. Your spirit is full of life and vigor. It is still capable of the greatest achievements, so release it from service. It is honorable, there is no doubt, but it is little suitable for a blissful life. Think, did you devote all your zeal from a young age to the study of free sciences, so that now you can take care of the safety of many thousands of poods of wheat? No, you were expected to do more and more. There will be no shortage of stewards and hard workers without you. Slow, heavy horses are much more suitable for transportation than blooded stallions. Who would load a thoroughbred horse? And consider this: how much worry and anxiety is added to the heavy burden you have already placed upon yourself, for you have to deal directly with the stomach of man, and a hungry people does not listen to arguments, does not justify the innocent, is not softened by pleas for mercy. Quite recently, in the days when Gaius Caesar died, the public treasuries were so empty that there was bread left for some 7 or 8 days. If the dead can feel anything, as he must have agonized, poor man, that the Roman people had outlived him. While he was building bridges from cargo ships, turning the might of the empire into toys, a calamity most terrible even for those besieged by the enemy, the lack of food, came close at hand. Imitating the mad foreign king, who was ruined by pride, almost cost us starvation and death, for starvation would inevitably have been followed by the collapse of everything and everyone. How must the men who were entrusted with the care of the state's bread supply have felt in those days? After all, they were threatened by stones, swords, fire, and Gaius himself. Calling to their aid all their pretense, they concealed the monstrous disease that had already struck the innards of the state. And there was a reason for this. Some diseases should be treated without telling the patient about them. Many died because they found out what they were sick of. Rather give it up and go to the business of the quiet, the safe, the great. Do you not care whether you continue to take care that the grain is delivered to the storehouses without loss, not plundered by crooks, not wasted by lazy men, that it does not get wet, not spoiled, not soggy, that its weight and volume accurately agree, or whether you proceed to the study of sacred higher subjects and find out what is the matter of God, His will, His state, His form? What fate awaits your soul? Where nature will take us when she frees us from the body? What power holds the heaviest parts of this world in the middle, suspends the lighter ones above them, and above all raises fire and makes the luminaries move each in its own way, and many other things filled with unimaginable wonders? Do you not wish to leave the earth and fix your spiritual gaze there upward? It is now, before your blood runs cold, before your strength runs out, that you must go in search of the best. I offer you a kind of life where many noble arts, love of virtue and its practical application, oblivion of lusts, knowledge of life and death, and deep peace await you. Chapter Bas. The fate of all busy people is worthy of pity, but the most miserable fate is reserved for those who are busy with things not even their own, who fall asleep adjusting themselves to another's sleep, who walk adjusting themselves to another's step, who even love and hate at the behest of others, though in this it would seem all are free. If they wish to know how short their life is, They would only have to estimate how much of it belongs to them. So don't be envious when you see a prettiness worn not for the first time, when you hear a name famous in the forum. These things are obtained at the cost of one's own life. People are willing to kill all their years to have one called by their name. Some do not manage to reach the summits to which their ambition calls them. Life leaves them when they have just begun to fight their way up in a fierce struggle. Some, having waded through thousands of dishonorable meannesses, still break through to the heights of honor and glory, only to be struck by the sorrowful thought that all the hardships they endured were only for the sake of a tombstone inscription. Others, on the slope of years, color their future with radiant hopes, confusing old age with youth, and decrepit forces betray them in the midst of new, shamelessly grandiose enterprises. The old man who breathes his breath in the middle of a court session, hearing the litigation of petty squabblers, eagerly catching the approval of the ignorant spectators. Shame on him who dies in the line of duty, tired of life before his work. Shame on him who goes to the other world, sitting at his account books, to the ridicule of his expectant heir. I cannot help giving another example which has just occurred to me. Gaius Tyrannius was an old man of rare neatness, but when he was over 90, Gaius Caesar relieved him of his procuratorial office without a request on his part. Then, Tyrannius ordered himself to be laid on his deathbed and mourned by the whole house as a dead man. And all the household, gathered around, wept that their aged master had at last had a chance to rest, and the mourning did not end until the old man was reinstated. Is it really so pleasant to die busy? But that's the way it is with most people. They want to work longer than they can. They fight hard against bodily weakness, and old age itself is a burden to them because it prevents them from working. The law does not call into the army after 50. It does not appoint to the Senate after 60. It is easier for men to obtain leisure for themselves from the law than from themselves. But while they grab what they can and become other people's prey themselves, while they give each other no rest, while they make each other miserable, while life passes, barren, joyless, useless to the soul. No one thinks about death. Everyone goes far ahead in his hopes, and some try to run in their plans on the other side of life, worrying about huge tombstones, about the dedication of public buildings, about the gifts that will be placed in the funeral pyre, and about a magnificent funeral procession to the envy of all. And yet they lived, by Hercules, so insignificantly little that they should have been buried by candlelight and torches.